You are tuned into the podcast of Drew's Morning Dish. We call it Loud and Clear because, well, for starters, I've been accused more than once of being loud, and you'll be able to hear this podcast morning, noon, and night, all of it crystal clear. No static, no signal interference. It is crystal clear. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's go get loud and clear. So this podcast is so new, I don't even have a name for it yet. But I think I'm going to call it something like Drew's Views, except today it's going to be Kevin's Views. And it is a tremendous honor and treat to welcome in for the real first official one of these, because last week's was more about where I've been for the last 6 or 8 weeks. Kevin Byrne is the Senior Vice President of Public and Community Relations for the Ravens, the honored first guest.
I am honored.
Of Drew's Views. Well,
I am honored. This is very cool.
Well,
thank you.
It's great to have you.
Thanks for thinking of us.
I'm always thinking of you. I got my purple on today.
I saw you.
That's how much I'm
good.
thinking.
I've got a little Ravens on here.
You should.
I should.
So
I didn't have to pay for mine.
I didn't pay for this either. It was a golf gift, but fair enough. All right, so we got a lot to cover today. I'm going to throw some fastballs at you. Couple curveballs.
All right.
I'll lob a few in there for you. It'll be like the old times.
All right.
You'll get mad at me once or twice in here, and we'll shake hands at the end, and we'll all be good, right? Is that fair?
That sounds fair.
First of all, I'm going to take you back to when you guys first came here. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot, but I think it's a fond memory for you, but it's also because of what you do for a living. It's also interesting to hear your thoughts about the team moving here and what it was like. To come from Cleveland, where you were
the Kings.
You were the Kings, and it was in your heart, right? I mean, you're an Ohio guy.
I'm from Cleveland.
Right. I mean, so
I was born in downtown.
I don't know that I've ever asked you this before. Tell me where you were and who told you the team was moving. I don't even know if I've ever asked you this.
You haven't. Art Modell told me. Art brought me into his office, and he said that, look, I've signed some papers, or I'm about to sign some papers, and I'm going to move the team to Baltimore. And I was just aghast. I just didn't think that was a possibility. And he says, I hope that you'll consider coming with us, and if not, I completely understand. And I said, you mean it's done? He goes, it's done. And, I thought to myself, here's a guy who refused to threaten Clevelanders about moving. Because he would tell me, he says, I'm not going to be Irsay, I'm not going to be Mike Brown running to Baltimore or another city saying, look back home, you better give me a stadium or I'll leave, but you're going to move instead. And so he never threatened, he just moved. So all his threats were private, but it was stunning news, just absolutely stunning news.
Do you think he didn't tell you, because you guys obviously had a tremendously close relationship. Do you think he didn't tell you because he knew you would say, whoa, Art, hold on a minute. Like, let's convene. Let's get a group of people together. Let's talk about this.
There's probably some of that. But what we had done is, because the stadium issue had become such a headline in Cleveland, we decided to separate the football from the business side, the stadium issue. So I was doing both the football and the stadium issue, and then we decided we'd bring somebody from the outside to handle just the maneuverings with the stadium and the politicians. Brought in a guy named Dave Hopcraft, who had been the managing editor of the Cleveland Plain Dealer and had started a PR marketing firm. So we used Dave for the stadium stuff. So I was kind of out of the stadium loop, except for lunchtime talk with Art. And Art would just continually show his frustration about the missed deadlines from the mayor of Cleveland. But he never, ever said at one of those luncheons, I'm going to have to move or I'm going to go broke. And to hear it, especially as a Clevelander, it was stunning on top of stunning.
When did you hear it? How far in advance of the actual announcement? Do you remember?
I think Art talked to me like on Wednesday afternoon, and it leaked out late Friday night.
Right.
Yep, late Friday night, and then.
So how hard was that for 2 days to walk around like?
Yeah, it was difficult.
I'm one of the only guys that knows
it was difficult. In news that was just going to be so shocking to the community, because the Browns are such a firm part of the foundation of what Cleveland is. It was really the only brag point for Cleveland for 40 years. The Indians never won for 40 years, and the Cavaliers, won one playoff series ever. So, we were the ones who made the gray and cold of December better because we were regularly in the playoffs or in the playoff hunt.
Right. The season, the last half of that season was like what? I mean, how kind of weird was it?
Bizarre.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. The first game at the stadium, all the advertisers wanted their signs down. So it was odd in that way. And
not unexpected, though, right?
You're right. And our
not unexpected.
No, I don't blame them.
Right.
And then Bill Belichick was our head coach, who is not the kindest or most generous person in that type of situation.
He just wants to win a football game.
And he was angry. He was angry, and he thought it was
because he couldn't help him win.
Yeah, and it was a distraction. He felt that players were worried about where they're going to live in 6 months, and so he thought it was a major distraction, and he was angry about it. And so he tried to keep it together, and it didn't work. We ended up having a 5-11 season. We were pretty awful by the end.
Why didn't he come to Baltimore?
Well, in the end, his contract was he still had time in his contract, but we knew when we came over here we were going to have to sell in a hurry. And that's not a strength of Bill. We couldn't sell winning because we had 5 seasons with Bill and we had lost 4 of them. And Bill's just not great at the microphone, as we have all seen, and so we felt that
especially when he's losing.
Yeah, we in just private talks with Art, the head coach is going to be the guy who's out in front and help us sell all these tickets we have to sell in just a couple months, by the way,
right.
And decided that one, Art felt he lost the team even prior to us. The information leaking that we were moving, that we had lost to the expansion Jacksonville Jaguars in Cleveland. And so Art was already nervous about Bill before that. Mm-hmm. And then he felt that Bill just didn't do enough to hold the thing together and get to a better record. And then plus he just didn't feel, and a number of us didn't feel, that Bill was going to be able to sell our product over here.
So you moved to Baltimore. Interesting sort of segue to that is the baseball team was 3 years removed from leaving Memorial Stadium and going down to a brand new state-of-the-art facility in this vibrant downtown area. You guys go play out on 33rd Street, right, which is now completely dead. Right. I mean, when you moved out there, the community was moving away from that area. In the old days, which you weren't around, but it was a very vibrant area there on game day. But so you leave Cleveland because you have the stadium issue, and you move into this place. And
which, by the way, was better than Cleveland Stadium.
In shape, condition-wise.
In shape, yeah.
Right. Right.
First of all, it had running water, right, which was compared to Cleveland Stadium, which couldn't
Had you been to Memorial Stadium before?
I had not.
You hadn't?
I had not. I had been a game, but I hadn't paid attention to it. But when we went over there, and when there were just little patches of grass on the field, because we came right over with 5 players to kind of introduce ourselves to the community, so we stopped at the Memorial Stadium. This is where we're going to play, guys. Remember, we had Vinny Testaverde and Tony Jones and Rob Burnett. And we're all looking around the stadium. We're all looking at each other like, holy cow, this is so much better than Cleveland Stadium.
Nice.
Look at this locker room compared to what we have.
Right.
And this is the one that's going to be demolished. So we were kind of happy at the beginning that we were going to have a better place to live. But there was still daunting overhead is we didn't have a name. We didn't have a ticket sold. We didn't have a suite sold. We didn't have anything. We had no income coming in. There were no guarantees when Art moved. All Art had the ability to do was sell personal seat licenses up to $65 million, which really wasn't going to pay everything off because Art had tremendous debt at that time. So we came over and we were running. We sprinted. We sprinted hard for
we in Baltimore,
5 months.
We had divorced ourselves of football. This wasn't the Browns leaving in '96 and getting a team in '99 where people were still kind of hungry. We had moved on in Baltimore.
No.
So you really were starting brand new.
No, and we also had a number of people in town, like John Stedman, the main columnist for the Baltimore Sun at the time, saying that all Art Modell has done to Cleveland is Ursade Cleveland. Mm-hmm. So we had to say, whoa, it's not quite the same thing. And so we had to try to sell that in a hurry. So I think we did two things. I think the one thing we did is we put Art out there, and we took him everywhere. This is who he is. Now you'll see that he's not Bob Ursay. Mm-hmm. And
was that you? Was that your idea? Was that your – because Art was obviously comfortable with it,
right,
but somebody would have to move him to do it.
Right.
Was that you?
Yes, because I just felt that if people knew Art – they had been the cover of Sports Illustrated. They had a cartoon drawing of Art Modell punching a dog between the legs, and that was what
the vision of what you did to Cleveland.
That's what Baltimoreans were feeling.
Right.
Then you had local people, saying, hey, this is what they did to Cleveland. We shouldn't embrace this group. So we did two things. I think we did that with Art, and the other thing is we reached out to every Baltimore Colt in the area, and we said, come meet us. And I went to the Baltimore Colts alumni meetings, and
you even said Ballmer there.
Yeah,
you've been here long enough now. You got Ballmer going.
I got it. That's very good. I feel good about that. And then, and we got them all to tap in, except one. We didn't hear from Johnny Unitas, and so a guy named Richard Samus, a car dealer, Mr. Nobody,
know him very well,
who was a good friend of Johnny's. Mm-hmm. I said, would you set me up with a meeting with Johnny Unitas? And so I told Johnny Unitas what we were doing, and we wanted the Baltimore Colts at our first game, and we had this idea that they would be in Baltimore Colts windbreakers, and then our players would be introduced, and they would take the jackets and reverse them, and the other side of it said Baltimore Ravens, and it said Baltimore football alumni. And so everybody was agreeing to do it, the Lenny Moores and Art Donovans, but nothing from John. So when I spoke with John Unitas, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I don't know Art Modell. I want to spend some time with him, and then I'll make my decision. So the two of those guys.
Well, you must have thought, well, that's a home run.
That's a home run.
Because if I can get you with Art,
right,
we're good. Right.
So, and I think their 45-minute meeting went like 4 hours, and they just had a blast. And at the end of the meeting, Art told me, he said, I promised this man something, that the alumni of the NFL aren't treated the way they should, and I'm going to go to bat for him, and with Johnny Unitas' help. And so that started some of the movement to get NFL alumni more money. It really came from that conversation with Johnny and Art that day.
So you start 96, you play a couple of years. The Orioles at that point were enjoying, for a long time anyway, the only 2 years they had really been prosperous. So it just happens, you guys show up. The Indians were, I'm thinking back, because the Indians were pretty good right around that time as well. Yeah. But you show up here for this new city, you need to take it over, and then you got the baseball team in town with this gorgeous stadium, with this baseball player who's going to set the greatest record in the history of the game, right, and they're selling out every night, and you're thinking to yourself, really, Art? Yeah, Baltimore was the answer, huh?
I remember driving to work. I remember being on the Beltway, driving down 83, going downtown, and I'd see all these O's stickers on cars, and I'm going, golly, how we'll never overcome this. We'll never be like they are. I could not find a Raven anywhere. So when I drive the streets today and see that, I'm just so proud of our organization, and what we've accomplished in a relatively short time. This is our 19th season, and now there's both. There's O's and Ravens, which I think is great. But those first couple of years, it was like, I remember the big thing was Steve Everett, our starting center, got hurt and went and had tests at the hospital, and it was a somewhat serious injury where he's going to miss 5 to 6 weeks. And it went 2 days before any reporter even knew about it. I knew in Cleveland that as soon as he went to a hospital for an MRI or X-ray, it was out, because we were such a part of the fabric there. And I'm thinking, geez, they don't care about us here. And someday, when we send a guy for an MRI, it's going to be in the news within 45 minutes, which is what happens now.
Now it's 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's fast.
Now you're trying to keep it away from everybody.
We can't, and we sneak people in back doors. Right. But I remember the Steve Everett injury, and I remember talking to Jim Bailey, our executive vice president at the time, said, we have a long way to go.
The interesting thing now is, today, 2014, the Orioles have had a resurgence, and obviously a couple weeks ago you guys had Buck out to the game, and it was great, and the fans loved it. But now you're battling with them again for money, not necessarily for fans. You've got your people, they have their people, but your corporate dollars are at stake now. I mean, it's an interesting time for you guys. It's the first time since you've been established that they've elevated themselves maybe to your equal in terms of the way you both have to go sell.
Well, I think it does. It is a competition. There's no doubt about it. But I think what happens when both teams succeed, more companies think about investing in it.
No doubt.
And so there's a synergy that comes from success for both franchises that I think helps both franchises. But yes, there are some companies that are only going to buy a suite for one or the other. Mm-hmm. I can't do both. Mm-hmm. And so that in those cases you do battle it. But there are more companies willing to spend on sports because they can see that nothing galvanizes the community like having those two, like sports teams can do it. Nothing can bring all elements of society together, whether you're at home watching, listening on radio, or going to the stadiums, that brings it, all together. There's not a church that can do that. There's not a politician who can do that. It is sports teams that galvanize communities. That's the common cause, and it's a great thing to be a part of.
Yep, no question. All right, we're going to step out for just a second. We're going to come back in more with Kevin Byrne when we return. Next up, we'll talk the early 2000s and talk about that title and talk some coaches as well. So we'll be right back. This edition of Loud and Clear at drewsmorningdish.com brought to you by Mountain Branch, my home away from home, pretty much. I play a lot of golf there. Course is in great shape these days. I love the food and the bar and grill. They have an outstanding wine list as well at Mountain Branch Golf Course on Mountain Road right there in Joppa, 410-836-9600. Loud and Clear also brought to you by Royal Farms. Get your money for nothing, as the commercial says. Get your money for nothing with free ATMs at Royal Farms. Loud and Clear coming to you today, loud and clear, we hope, as a courtesy of our friends at the Green Turtle Sports Bar and Grill. I've been hanging out at the Green Turtle in White Marsh a lot and enjoying the outstanding food there. I love the black and chicken Caesar wrap, lots of beer specials, pretty decent wine list, too, there at the Green Turtle. Check in with Edgar, the manager. Tell him you heard Drew yapping about it on Loud and Clear, and we'll be doing some more appearances at Green Turtle. In fact, I think December 7th, I will be at the Green Turtle in Hunt Valley for a Ravens viewing party. And finally, Loud and Clear brought to you by CQ. And they say they're going in a different direction. It's a good direction, I can tell you that. We've been members since March. My family loves it at CQ. You can check out their website at cqmd.com. Back in here with Kevin Byrne, the Senior Vice President of Public and Community Relations for the Ravens, who how many people have been here since day one? I know, obviously you have.
Uh-huh.
There aren't many, right?
Probably 7 or 8.
Okay.
Ozzie.
Right.
Pat Moriarty. Mark Smith, head trainer. John Dubé, our head of football video. Not off the top of my head, I'm not getting all of them, but there are 7 or 8 of us who have been here since day one.
You've seen it all.
But those are the ones who came from Cleveland. We have others like Roy Summerhoff
who've been here since the team started.
Right.
Okay, right.
But
the Bryan decision, and Ted kind of taking it, I guess, as far as maybe he could, and not to discuss why Bryan was hired, but what was it about him that changed things around here? What was it about Bryan and just his arrival that seemed to coincide with winning? Maybe it was just coincidence, but it seemed to, when Bryan showed up, things started to get better.
Well, first of all, you have to give our personnel department credit. Ozzie's good at this, and his first 2 draft picks are Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis, so we had a base. But and you know this from Bryan has a command about him. He's got an aura about him that he's in charge. He's very confident. And I think we needed that at that time. Ted Marchibroda, who we loved, very humble man.
Everyone loves their grandfather.
Yeah,
everyone loves their grandfather. Right?
And that was, it was like
Right.
I thought that there is a God. I had 5 years with Bill Belichick, and then he let me work 3 years with my grandfather, Ted Marchibroda, who Ted is still close today. But Brian walks in the door, at 6'5", 6'6", and he has a command presence about him. He's in charge. He has a lot of opinions. He's willing to share them, and I think that type of attitude is what we needed to get over the top.
So and then obviously, not only just the Super Bowl, but the whole, Baltimore sort of becoming a fixture, making the playoffs, being in the playoff hunt. Not enough, obviously, at the end there, but how much of that was Brian? How much of that was, the development of the players? How much of a role did Brian play in all of that?
A huge part, because the head coach spends so much time with your players, and there are so many headaches that come with that. There are so many things that go on in a team, as you know, Drew, that just don't become public, that a head coach has to deal with all the time. And I thought he was very good at managing a lot of that. I think it's hard for a head coach over a long period of time to keep doing that. Bill Cowher, who's a friend, once told me that, there's a point where I don't have any more new stories. I have no new motivations. And I look out there, and Bill told me, he said, there's Hines Ward. He's heard this, but I got to tell it because Ben hasn't heard it. So Brian always said that I should come with like a 10-year guarantee, and then after that you're on your own. Right. He did 9 seasons. But there is a point where are the players listening? Are they not listening? But for a while there, the players hung on every word Brian said. And so I think they like that. They also like Brian's style. Brian was aggressive on the sideline, took on people publicly, and protected the players. And I think players looked at him and saying, well, he's defending us. We'll fight for him.
Well, time flies, though, right? John is in his seventh year. It's getting up to Brian territory.
I know.
In terms of his tenure.
But you know what? When we hired John, and Steve Bisciotti said it to John the day we hired him, he said, we're not going to be like everybody else. We're going to contend every year. That's what I want. I don't look for windows. We're going to contend every year, and you're going to break the mold. You're going to stay here as long as you want because we will contend every year. And so far, so good. John is excellent at constantly looking at things, churning, seeing, can we do something different?
You've changed the practices this year.
Right? We did.
No more Tuesdays aren't out. You're not off anymore.
It's a huge example. So he's looked into studies on sleeping, found that guys that are our players' age need more sleep or want more sleep. They're a little bit like teenagers, So the day before a game, rather than the day after a game, rather than bring him in on a Monday, he's telling them, get off your legs, stay home, sleep. And then on Tuesday, which now he brings them in like what used to be the Monday to kind of review the game before, he's bringing them in at noon so that take the morning off, get off your legs, sleep in. Now when you come here Tuesday, which used to be like our Monday, and Tuesday was the day off, now they look at a little bit of the film from Sunday and see what they did right or wrong. They walk through the mistakes they had, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are the intense days with practices. So he constantly looks to change. I think the other thing that John is so wise about is John has a humility that is extraordinary. He does not believe he has all the answers, but believes, I think, that he has to appear to be in command. But he is very open to what do you think. He has his leadership group. And, so he's constantly bringing in that leadership group among his players, guys like Haloti and Terrell and Joe Flacco and Lardarius Webb, Torrey Smith. What are we doing? Should we practice harder? Should we practice less? How are everybody's legs? What should we be doing? Should we go a day early? Should we stay a day late? Should we go to the hotel? Not go to the hotel? So he bounces everything off them. Should we be in pads? Should we not be in pads? And what do we need to work on? So he's constantly doing that. His office is right across the hall from Ozzy's, so they constantly talk. He always reaches out to Steve to get Steve's input, Steve Bisciotti. So he has a way about him. He might say something very, very commanding, like, I think we really need to do this right now. But then he'll go, what do you think? Mm-hmm. He gives you the opportunity to say, well, I think that's a bad idea. Now, he might, in the end, still ignore what you think. Yeah,
still go with his
but
way.
at least he's asking you for your opinion. And I think that's why he's going to have incredible longevity in this job at a high, successful rate.
When was there a moment, did you have some sort of epiphany of when did you know he was a really good coach? Was there something that happened in year 1, year 2, anything that happened where you went, you know what, this dude's going to be really good?
Well, you have to see the players buying. So when he first becomes our head coach in 2008, the players are balking in training camp. I
remember it well.
Yeah, we're practicing too
McAllister
hard.
McAllister came in and said, I can remember it because Gary Stills told me, McAllister came in and said, we got to get rid of this dude. This isn't going to fly. These 2-a-days in 98-degree heat, not going to work.
They're all saying, and they're all going to him saying, you want to be a playoff team? We better have our legs in December, and you're taking them out in July.
Right.
And you had Matt Stover, who was the player rep, representing players, questioning him. You had Jonathan Ogden saying, you're killing us. And so you hear all that, and you're going, oh, geez, here we go. And then I really became sold in a loss, believe it or not.
Okay.
Our second game with John Harbaugh, regular season, was at Pittsburgh for a Monday night.
I was there. Dan Wilcox caught Joe Flacco's first ever touchdown pass.
There you go.
How good is that? Huh?
That's excellent. And Joe, now we're starting a rookie quarterback.
Lost in overtime.
And we lost in overtime. And I'm thinking, this is pretty good. Because Pittsburgh was good. And to hold that team together and prepare like we did, it sold me on his assistants, it sold me on him, and even his reaction after the game, which was, that's not good enough. But it's not good enough, guys. We're going to get better. And the reason we're going to get better is because of the way we practice. And just keep with me. This is going to work. We end up going to the AFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about him, and it's funny because I saw him this afternoon when we arrived to do this, and I said, hey, you guys are off to a good start. And he gave me this, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
It would have been easy for him to say, I'm excited, but he kind of shook his head, almost like I was a player. Nah, we got a lot of work to do.
That's right. He is vigilant. He is passionate. He is relentless. And I think you need all those things. And I think it's hard to keep that up because it is a wear-down job. I don't know a harder job, maybe the President of the United States, but it is a wear-down job. And you are so scrutinized in it. We're scrutinized weekly. You know this. Mm-hmm. You were part of the scrutinizers.
Sure. Yeah, right.
So you're second guessed on a regular basis,
right.
And that's hard to take. So if we win the next game, then we'll be saluted. There'll be some second guessing. If we lose the next game, then it doesn't matter what we did the first 7 or 8 games of the year. So it's a strange business that way, especially when you're so competitive. But he is able to energize himself, and he does not let anything slide. If he sees something that's not working, whether it be Terrell Suggs, Joe Flacco, Jacoby Jones, he is going to be on it, and he's going to be on it in a hurry. We can't accept that. If you do that in Thursday's practice, you're going to do it in a game. Let's do that again.
All right, so that will conclude part 1 of my sit-down with Kevin Byrne here on Loud and Clear. We'll be back on Wednesday for more. We got lots more to cover. Still have to talk about the Ravens' sort of current state of affairs and that running back that got into a little trouble during the offseason. We got plenty more to talk about with Kevin, so hang in there with us. I'll be back tomorrow. Come on back and join us on a Wednesday here at Drew's Morning Dish. More Kevin Byrne tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us.